You know what's happening to most people right now? They're living everywhere except where they actually are. They're in yesterday, replaying conversations that already happened. They're in tomorrow, worried about things that haven't occurred yet. They're in their minds, spinning stories about what someone meant when they said something, what they should have said back, what might go wrong next week, next month, next year. And all the while, life is happening right here, right now, and they're completely missing it. The truth is, most of your suffering comes from being trapped inside your own thinking. It's not the world that's making you anxious. It's not other people that are stealing your peace. It's the constant chatter in your head, the endless commentary, the repetitive thoughts that loop around and around like a song you can't get out of your mind. You wake up and immediately the voice starts. Did I say the right thing yesterday? What do I need to do today? Why did that person look at me that way? What if this happens? What if that happens? On and on it goes, from the moment you open your eyes until you finally fall asleep at night, exhausted from wrestling with your own mind. But here's what I want you to understand. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who is aware of your thoughts. There's a massive difference between these two things. And when you finally see this difference, everything changes. Your thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky. You are the sky itself. The clouds come and go. Some are dark, some are light, some block the sun for a while, but the sky remains unchanged, always present, always peaceful beneath whatever weather passes through it. When you live in your head, you're identifying with the clouds. You're saying, I am this anxious thought. I am this worry. I am this fear. I am this anger. But you're not. These are just experiences passing through your consciousness. They're not who you are at your core. Who you are is the awareness itself, the peaceful presence that exists before the thought, during the thought, and after the thought disappears. Think about it this way. When you're sound asleep at night, where are all your problems? Where is all your anxiety? Where are all the things you were worrying about just hours before? They're nowhere. They've disappeared. Not because your life situation changed while you were sleeping, but because you weren't thinking about them. Your problems exist only in your thinking. When the thinking stops, the problems stop. This is not positive thinking. This is not about replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. This is about seeing that the whole game is in your head. Most people spend their entire lives trying to arrange their external circumstances to feel peaceful. They think, if I just get that job, I'll feel secure. If I just find the right relationship, I'll feel complete. If I just make enough money, I'll feel safe. If people would just treat me better, I'd feel happy. But what happens? They get the job and feel good for a week, maybe a month, then the mind starts up again with new worries. They find the relationship and it's wonderful for a while, then the thinking starts. What if they leave me? What if I'm not good enough? What if this doesn't last? They make the money and immediately start worrying about losing it or not having enough. The external circumstances change, but the internal experience remains the same because you're still living in your head. You're still believing every thought that comes through your mind as if it were the absolute truth. You're still treating your thinking as reality instead of seeing it for what it is, just thinking, just mental activity that comes and goes. Peace is not something you need to achieve. It's not something you need to earn or work toward. Peace is what's already here when you stop disturbing it with your thinking. It's like a pond. When you keep throwing rocks into it, the surface stays disturbed, ripples everywhere, and you can't see clearly to the bottom. But when you stop throwing rocks, the pond naturally becomes still. You don't have to make it still. Stillness is its natural state. The same is true for your mind. When you stop feeding it, when you stop believing every thought, when you stop living in your head, peace is what remains. It's always been there, underneath all the noise. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but I have real problems. I have real responsibilities. I can't just stop thinking about things. And you're right, thinking has its place. When you need to solve a problem, when you need to plan something, when you need to make a decision, thinking is a useful tool. But that's what it should be, a tool that you pick up when you need it and put down when you don't. What's happening with most people is that the tool has taken over. The thinking never stops. It's running 24 hours a day, even when there's no actual problem to solve, no decision to make, no planning necessary. Your mind has become like a radio that's always on, always broadcasting, and you've forgotten that you have the power to turn it off, or at least to turn down the volume. You've become so identified with the voice in your head that you think it's who you are. You think you need it to survive. But the truth is, your mind is making up most of what it's telling you. It's creating scenarios that haven't happened. It's replaying the past, which no longer exists. It's projecting into a future that isn't here yet. And none of it is real. None of it is actually happening right now. Right now, in this moment, reading these words or hearing these words. Are you okay? Not in your thinking about the past or future, but right now, is there a problem? Most of the time, the answer is no. Right now, you're breathing. Right now, you're alive. Right now, everything is actually fine. The problems only exist when you leave this moment and go into your head. So how do you stop living in your head? How do you get out of this trap? The first step is simply becoming aware of it. Start noticing how much time you spend in thought. Start catching yourself when you're reliving something from the past or rehearsing something for the future. Just notice it. You don't have to judge it or fight it. Just see it. Oh, there's my mind again, telling me stories. There it is. Worrying about something that hasn't happened. There it is. Replaying that conversation from 3 days ago for the 100th time. When you start to notice your thinking, you automatically create a little bit of space between you and your thoughts. You're no longer completely lost in them. You're beginning to see them as objects, as things that are happening, rather than being the thing itself. This space is everything. In that space, you have a choice. You can either continue to believe the thought and follow it down whatever rabbit hole it wants to take you, or you can simply let it pass by like a cloud in the sky. Here's what I want you to understand. Your thoughts don't require your belief. They don't require your attention. They don't require your agreement. They're just going to keep coming. That's what minds do. They produce thoughts like your heart produces heartbeats. But you don't have to believe every thought that appears in your mind any more than you have to agree with every opinion someone shares with you. Just because a thought shows up doesn't mean it's true. Just because your mind says something doesn't mean you have to listen to it. The more you practice this, the more you'll start to see that most of your thoughts are repetitive. Your mind tells you the same stories over and over again, the same worries, the same fears, the same doubts, the same resentments. It's like a broken record playing the same songs on repeat. And once you see this, once you really see how repetitive and unnecessary most of your thinking is, you'll naturally start to pay less attention to it. You wouldn't watch the same movie every day for years, would you? Yet, that's exactly what you're doing with your thoughts. When you stop living in your head, when you stop giving all your attention to the constant stream of thinking, something remarkable happens. You start to notice what's actually here. You start to experience life directly instead of through the filter of your thoughts. You notice the warmth of the sun on your skin. You hear the birds singing. You taste your food. You see the expressions on people's faces. You feel your own breath moving in and out of your body. You experience the simple miracle of being alive, right here, right now. This is where peace lives. Not in having everything figured out, not in controlling every aspect of your life, not in making sure nothing bad ever happens. Peace lives in this moment when you're not thinking about it, when you're not analyzing it, when you're not judging it or wishing it were different. Peace is the natural state of simply being present without the commentary. Now, your mind is going to resist this. Your ego doesn't want you to be peaceful. Your ego wants you to keep thinking, because thinking is how it maintains its existence. The ego is nothing but a collection of thoughts about who you are. It's your self-image, your identity, all the stories you tell yourself about yourself. I'm the kind of person who worries. I'm not good at relationships. I always mess things up. I need to be perfect. People don't respect me. I'm not enough. These thoughts create a sense of a separate self, an individual who needs to protect itself, prove itself, defend itself, improve itself. When you stop identifying with your thoughts, the ego feels threatened because it is made of thoughts. So it will do everything it can to keep you engaged with thinking. It will create problems where there are none. It will magnify small issues into huge dramas. It will tell you that you can't stop thinking because something terrible will happen. It will make you believe that your constant mental activity is keeping you safe, keeping you prepared, keeping you in control. But the opposite is true. Your constant thinking is what's creating most of your suffering. It's keeping you trapped in a prison of your own making, and the bars of that prison are made of thoughts. Every time you believe a thought about how things should be different, you're suffering. Every time you believe a thought about what someone else should or shouldn't do, you're suffering. Every time you believe a thought about how you're not good enough or how life isn't fair, you're suffering. The way out is not to fight your thoughts. It's not to try to stop thinking through force of will. That's just more thinking, more mental activity. The way out is to simply stop believing your thoughts, to see them as what they are, mental events, passing phenomena, temporary visitors in your consciousness. You don't have to make them go away. You just have to stop giving them so much importance, so much power over your state of being. Here's a powerful shift you can make right now. Instead of asking yourself, what am I thinking? Start asking yourself, what am I aware of? This simple question moves you from being lost in thought to being present with awareness. When you ask, what am I thinking? You're reinforcing the identification with mind. When you ask, what am I aware of? You're recognizing yourself as the awareness, not the thoughts. Try it right now. What are you aware of? Maybe you're aware of these words. Maybe you're aware of sensations in your body, the feeling of sitting or standing, the weight of your clothes on your skin. Maybe you're aware of sounds around you, the hum of traffic, voices, the wind, silence. Maybe you're aware of your breathing, the natural rhythm of air moving in and out. All of these things are happening right now, in this moment, and they're real. They're not stories. They're not interpretations. They're direct experiences of reality. This is life. This is what's actually happening, and it's completely okay. It's completely enough. You don't need to be anywhere else or anyone else or have anything else to be okay right now. The only thing that makes you think otherwise is your thinking. The only thing that makes you feel like something is missing or wrong is the story your mind is telling you. Most people have become addicted to their thinking. They're addicted to the drama, the stories, the problems, the constant mental stimulation. They've forgotten how to just be. They've forgotten how to exist without constantly commenting on their existence. They fill every quiet moment with thought, with distraction, with mental noise. They can't sit quietly for 5 minutes without getting restless, without reaching for their phone, without needing to do something, anything, to avoid the simple experience of being present. But that restlessness is not a problem with the present moment. It's a problem with your relationship to the present moment. It's the mind's addiction to activity, its fear of stillness, its discomfort with peace. Because in peace, in stillness, the mind has nothing to do. And if the mind has nothing to do, you might start to see that you don't need it as much as you thought you did. You might start to experience yourself as something more than just a thinking machine. When you were a child, you knew how to be present. You could sit and watch an ant crawl across the ground for half an hour, completely absorbed, completely there. You could lie on your back and watch the clouds without needing to name them or figure them out or worry about what they meant. You could play with simple things and be completely content. What happened to that capacity? Your mind developed. You learned language. You learned to think. You learned to worry about what others think. You learned to compare yourself to others. You learned to plan and analyze and judge and interpret everything. You gained a powerful tool, but you lost something essential. You lost your natural state of presence, your natural state of peace. And now you're spending your whole life trying to get it back through achieving and acquiring and arranging your life just right. But you can't think your way back to peace. You have to stop thinking your way out of it. This doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you stop taking action in your life. It doesn't mean you don't care about anything. It means you take action from a place of presence instead of from a place of anxious thinking. It means you respond to what's actually in front of you instead of reacting to the stories in your head. It means you care about things without needing to control every outcome. There's a huge difference between thinking that serves you and thinking that runs your life. Strategic thinking, creative thinking, practical thinking, these all have their place. But repetitive thinking, anxious thinking, judgmental thinking, this kind of thinking just creates suffering. And most of your thinking falls into this second category. Most of your thinking is just noise. When you stop living in your head, you'll find that you actually think more clearly when you need to. When you're not constantly exhausted from mental chatter, when you're present and peaceful, and then a situation arises that requires thought, your mind is fresh, it's clear. It can think much more effectively because it's not cluttered with all the junk that accumulates from constant thinking. It's like the difference between a computer that has 1,000 programs running in the background and one that's clean and efficient. The cluttered computer is slow, it freezes, it crashes. The clean computer runs smoothly and responds quickly when you need it. Your mind works the same way. When you're not running all these background programs of worry and judgment and replay and rehearsal, your mind is available to actually serve you when you need it. Living in your head also affects your relationships in profound ways. When you're lost in thought, you're not really present with the people in your life. You might be physically there, but mentally you're somewhere else. You're thinking about what you're going to say next instead of listening. You're interpreting what they mean instead of hearing what they're actually saying. You're comparing them to others or to your expectations. You're thinking about the past with them or worrying about the future. And all of this creates distance, creates misunderstanding, creates conflict. When you stop living in your head, you become truly available to others. You can listen without planning your response. You can see them without the filter of your judgments and interpretations. You can connect with them in the present moment instead of relating to them through your stories about who they are or who they should be. This transforms relationships. People feel seen, they feel heard, they feel met, and they naturally respond to that presence with their own presence. The same thing happens with your relationship to yourself. When you're always in your head, you're always judging yourself, always finding yourself lacking in some way, always trying to fix or improve or change yourself. This creates an inner war, an exhausting battle with yourself that you can never win because you're both the warrior and the enemy. You're fighting yourself, which is insane when you really look at it. When you stop living in your head, you can finally be at peace with yourself. You don't need to be different. You don't need to be better. You don't need to be perfect. You can just be who you are right now, exactly as you are. And from that place of acceptance, from that place of peace with yourself, real change becomes possible. Not change from self-rejection, but change from self-acceptance. Not change because you're not good enough, but change because you're inspired to grow and express yourself more fully. Here's another thing that happens when you stop living in your head. You stop being so affected by external circumstances. Because you realize that it's never the circumstances themselves that disturb you. It's always your thinking about the circumstances. Something happens, and immediately your mind creates a story about it. This shouldn't have happened. This is terrible. This means something bad about me or my life. This is going to lead to disaster. And then you suffer from the story, not from the actual event. Two people can experience the exact same situation and have completely different experiences of it. Why? Because of their thinking. One person loses their job and sees it as the end of the world, proof that they're a failure, a catastrophe. Another person loses the same job and sees it as an opportunity, a chance to do something different, a door opening. The situation is the same. The thinking creates two entirely different experiences. When you understand this, when you really get that your experience of life is created by your thinking and not by your circumstances, you become free. Not free from difficulties, not free from challenges, but free from suffering about them. Free to respond to life with clarity instead of reacting from fear and anxiety. Free to experience whatever is happening without the added layer of mental torment. This is what people mean when they talk about inner peace. It's not about having a perfect life where nothing goes wrong. It's about having a different relationship with whatever is happening. It's about not being at war with reality. It's about not believing every story your mind tells you about how things should be different than they are. Right now, things are the way they are. That's just a fact. You can accept that fact and respond to it, or you can resist it and suffer. Most people choose resistance without even realizing they're choosing it. They think their resistance is justified, necessary, important. But resistance doesn't change anything except your own state of being. It doesn't change what already happened. It doesn't change what is. It just makes you miserable. Acceptance doesn't mean you like everything. It doesn't mean you don't work to change things. It just means you acknowledge what is before you act. You accept this moment as it is, and then you respond to it. This is completely different from accepting a situation and doing nothing about it. You can accept that you're unhealthy and start exercising. You can accept that your relationship isn't working and have an honest conversation. You can accept that you're in debt and make a plan to get out of it. Acceptance is not resignation. It's the starting point for effective action. When you're not fighting with reality, when you're not lost in stories about how things shouldn't be this way, you can see clearly what needs to be done. You can act from wisdom instead of from reactivity. You can respond instead of reacting. But when you're living in your head, everything becomes a reaction. Someone says something and your mind immediately creates a meaning, and you react to that meaning. Something doesn't go as planned, and your mind creates a story about what it means, and you react to that story. You're not responding to reality. You're responding to your interpretation of reality, which is often completely different. When you stop living in your head, You start to see reality more clearly. You see that most of what you thought was happening wasn't actually happening. Most of your interpretations were wrong. Most of your assumptions were false. Most of your worries were unnecessary. You've been shadow boxing with phantoms created by your own thinking. There's a reason meditation has been practiced for thousands of years in every culture and every wisdom tradition. It's not because people had nothing better to do. It's because they discovered something essential. They discovered that beneath all the thinking, beneath all the mental noise, there's a place of profound peace and clarity. They discovered that you don't need to change your external circumstances to be at peace. You just need to stop disturbing your natural state with constant thinking. Meditation is just the practice of not believing your thoughts, of not following every mental thread that appears, of returning again and again to the present moment, to the direct experience of being alive right now. It's the practice of being the sky instead of the clouds, of being the awareness instead of the content of awareness. You don't need to sit in a cave for 20 years to experience this. You can practice it right now. You can practice it in the middle of your busy life. Anytime you notice you're lost in thought, you can simply come back to the present moment. You can feel your breath. You can feel your body. You can notice what's around you. You can choose to be here instead of in your head. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. The more you'll find that you spontaneously drop into presence throughout your day, the more you'll catch yourself getting lost in thought earlier and earlier. The more you'll experience moments, then hours, then entire days where you're not constantly narrating your life to yourself, where you're just living it. This is freedom. Not freedom from life, but freedom to experience life directly. Freedom from the tyranny of your own thinking. Freedom from the prison of your mind. And it's available to everyone. It doesn't require special circumstances or special abilities. It just requires that you stop believing everything you think, that you stop treating your thoughts as reality, that you stop living in your head and start living in your life. The peace you're looking for is not somewhere out there. It's not in the future when everything finally works out. It's not in the past when things were supposedly better. It's here, now, underneath all the thinking. It's always been here. You've just been too busy living in your head to notice it. So what would happen if you stopped right now? What would happen if you let go of all the thoughts about what you need to do, who you need to be, what's wrong, what's missing, what might happen, what should happen? What would happen if you just let yourself be here, fully present, not trying to get anywhere or be anything other than what you are right now? Nothing bad would happen. In fact, something miraculous would happen. You'd experience peace, not the peace that comes from having everything figured out, not the peace that comes from perfect circumstances, but the peace that's always here when you're not disturbing it with your thinking, the peace that is your natural state when you're not at war with this moment. And from that peace, from that presence, everything else in your life becomes easier. Problems become simpler. Decisions become clearer. Relationships become richer. Work becomes more fulfilling. Not because anything external changed, but because you're no longer carrying the heavy burden of constant thinking. You're no longer exhausting yourself with mental resistance to what is. You know what most people don't realize? The reason they feel so tired all the time isn't because their life is so hard. It's because thinking is exhausting. Constant mental activity, constant worry, constant planning and reviewing and judging and analyzing, this takes an enormous amount of energy. It's like running a marathon in your mind every single day. No wonder you're tired. When you stop living in your head, you'll find you have so much more energy. Not because you're sleeping more or eating better, though those things help, but because you're not wasting your energy on unnecessary thinking. You're not burning yourself out with mental struggle. You're conserving your energy for what actually matters, for actual living instead of thinking about living. This is what it means to be aligned with life, to flow with what is instead of constantly pushing against it, to respond to what's actually here instead of reacting to your thoughts about what's here, to be present with this moment instead of always trying to get to the next one or go back to the last one. Your life is happening now, not in your memories of the past, not in your projections of the future. Now, this breath, this moment, this is it. This is your life. And when you're living in your head, you're missing it. You're trading the actual experience of being alive for a mental simulation of life. You're trading reality for thoughts about reality. And thoughts about reality are never satisfying because they're not real. They can't feed you the way actual experience feeds you. It's like looking at pictures of food instead of eating. Pictures of food can't nourish you. Thoughts about life can't fulfill you. Only the direct experience of being present with life can do that. So stop living in your head. Stop believing every thought. Stop treating your mental commentary as if it's the truth. Stop giving your attention to the endless stream of thinking that wants to pull you away from this moment. Stop postponing your life until some imaginary future when everything is perfect. Start being here. Start noticing what's actually happening right now. Start experiencing the miracle of your own existence. Start feeling the peace that's always been here, waiting for you to stop disturbing it with your thinking. Life becomes peaceful when you finally stop living in your head, not because everything becomes perfect, but because you stop demanding that everything be perfect. You stop resisting what is. You stop fighting with reality. You stop exhausting yourself with constant thinking. And in that space, in that stillness, you find what you've been looking for all along. Not in the future. Not in different circumstances. Not in being someone other than who you are. Right here. Right now. In the simple, profound experience of being present with life as it is. This is the invitation. This is the possibility. This is available to you right now, not later, not when you figure everything out, not when you become enlightened or perfect or have it all together. Now, in this moment, you can stop living in your head and start living in your life. The choice is yours. You can continue to believe every thought, follow every worry, replay every regret, rehearse every anxiety, or you can see through the whole game. You can recognize that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear. And from that recognition, from that place of presence, peace is inevitable. It's not something you have to create or achieve or earn. It's what you are when you stop disturbing it. It's what remains when the thinking settles. It's what's here right now, underneath all the noise, waiting for you to notice it. So, notice it, be it, live from it, and watch as your entire experience of life transforms, not because life changed, but because you stopped living in your head and finally came home to the present moment, where peace has always been, where life has always been, where you have always been. This is the end of suffering, not the end of challenges, not the end of difficulties, but the end of mental torment, the end of the constant battle with yourself and with life, the end of living in a prison made of thoughts, and the beginning of something else entirely, the beginning of presence, the beginning of peace, the beginning of really truly living instead of just thinking about living. This is possible for you right now, in this moment. When you finally stop living in your head, life becomes peaceful again. Not someday, not eventually, now. Right now, in this very moment, someone is thinking about you. Someone is waking up to the truth of who you really are. They're seeing past the masks, past the walls, past all the things you thought you needed to hide. And here's what I want you to understand. They're not seeing your flaws. They're not focusing on your mistakes. They're seeing your light. They're recognizing something magnificent in you that perhaps you haven't even recognized in yourself yet. You see, we spend so much of our lives worried about what people think of us. We wake up in the morning and we put on our armor. We rehearse our conversations. We try to control how others perceive us. We edit ourselves. We diminish ourselves. We make ourselves smaller because somewhere along the way someone told us that who we are isn't quite enough. But here's the truth that will set you free. You were never meant to be anyone other than exactly who you are. Think about this for a moment. There are over 8 billion people on this planet, and not one of them has your exact combination of experiences, talents, perspectives, and gifts. Not one. You are literally a once-in-all-of-eternity event. The universe will never again create another you. So, when you're trying to be like someone else, when you're dimming your light to make others comfortable, when you're hiding your true self because you're afraid of judgment, you're actually depriving the world of something it desperately needs. You're withholding your gift. And right now, someone is waking up to that gift. Maybe it's someone you've known for years, and suddenly they're seeing you with new eyes. Maybe it's someone new who's just entered your life, and they can see clearly what you've been too close to recognize. Maybe it's someone who's been taking you for granted, and life has shown them what it would be like without you. Whoever it is, they're having a moment of clarity about you, and that clarity is going to change things. But here's what I really want you to hear. The most important person who needs to wake up about you is you, because you can't attract what you don't believe you deserve. You can't receive love if you don't love yourself. You can't be appreciated by others in the way you deserve if you don't first appreciate yourself. Everything in your external world is a reflection of your internal world. When you change the way you look at yourself, the way others look at you will change too. So many of us are walking around with an outdated story about ourselves. We're operating from a script that was written years ago, maybe decades ago, by people who didn't even know us. Maybe it was a parent who was struggling with their own issues. Maybe it was a teacher who had a bad day. Maybe it was a relationship that ended badly. And we took those moments, those judgments, those rejections, and we made them mean something about our worth. We created an identity around them. But those stories aren't true. They never were. You are not the sum of other people's opinions. You are not defined by your past mistakes. You are not limited by what didn't work out before. Every single moment is a new opportunity to choose differently, to think differently, to be different. You are not a fixed entity. You are a constantly evolving expression of infinite potential. When someone wakes up about you, what they're really doing is seeing past the false self you've been projecting and recognizing the real you underneath. They're seeing the kindness in your heart that you try to protect. They're noticing the strength you've developed through your struggles. They're appreciating the unique way you see the world. They're valuing the contribution you make just by being yourself. And this is happening right now. While you're listening to these words, someone's mind is turning toward you with appreciation, with respect, with love, with admiration. They're realizing they haven't told you how much you matter. They're recognizing they took you for granted. They're understanding, maybe for the first time, how rare and valuable you truly are. But let me tell you something else. Even if no one else ever wakes up about you, even if you never receive the recognition you deserve from the outside world, you still have an obligation to wake up about yourself. Because your worth is not determined by whether others see it. Your value is inherent. It exists whether anyone acknowledges it or not. You are worthy because you exist, not because of what you do or what you achieve or who validates you. This is one of the hardest lessons we have to learn. We've been conditioned to seek approval from external sources. We've been taught that our value comes from our accomplishments, our appearance, our status, our relationships. But all of that is temporary. All of that can change. All of that is outside of your control. The only thing that's permanent, the only thing that's truly yours, is your essential nature, your spirit, your authentic self. When you connect with that part of yourself, when you wake up to your own magnificence, everything shifts. You stop needing validation because you're already validated from within. You stop seeking approval because you approve of yourself. You stop waiting for permission to be yourself because you realize you never needed permission in the first place. You were born with the right to be exactly who you are. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. You might be saying, but you don't know what I've done. You don't know the mistakes I've made. You don't know how many times I've failed. You don't know the things I'm ashamed of. And you're right. I don't know your specific story. But I do know this. Your past does not define you unless you let it. Your mistakes are not who you are. They're what you did at a moment in time when you didn't know better, when you were hurt, when you were confused, when you were disconnected from your true self. Forgiveness isn't just about letting others off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of the past. It's about recognizing that you did the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. And now you have more awareness. Now you know better. Now you can choose differently. That's not weakness. That's growth. That's evolution. That's being human. Someone waking up about you right now is seeing this growth. They're recognizing how far you've come. They're noticing the changes you've made, even the ones you think are too small to matter. They're seeing your effort, your commitment, your resilience. They're understanding that who you are today is not who you were yesterday, and who you'll be tomorrow is still being created. And this person who's waking up about you, they might express it, or they might not. They might tell you how they feel, or they might keep it to themselves. But the energy of their awakening is already affecting your life. You might feel it as a subtle shift in how they interact with you. You might notice they're more attentive, more caring, more present, or you might not notice anything at all on the surface, but something has changed in the invisible realm where all real change happens first. Because here's what most people don't understand. Everything is energy first before it becomes form. Every relationship, every opportunity, every change in your life begins as an energetic shift. Someone thinking about you differently is already creating a different reality. Someone appreciating you is already sending that appreciation out into the universe, and the universe responds to that frequency. This is why it's so important to monitor what you think about yourself. If you're constantly criticizing yourself, if you're always focusing on what's wrong with you, if you're perpetually disappointed in yourself, you're broadcasting that frequency. And the universe, which is always listening, always responding, brings you more experiences that match that frequency. It's not punishment. It's not bad luck. It's just the law of attraction working perfectly, giving you more of whatever you're focused on. But when you start to wake up about yourself, when you start to see yourself through the eyes of love instead of judgment, when you start to appreciate your own unique gifts and talents, you broadcast a completely different frequency. And then the universe brings you people who see you that way too. It brings you opportunities that match your new self-concept. It brings you experiences that reflect your new understanding of who you are. This is not magical thinking. This is spiritual law. Like attracts like. What you put out comes back to you. As within, so without. These aren't just nice sayings. They're descriptions of how reality actually works. Your external world is a mirror of your internal world. Always has been, always will be. So when someone is waking up about you right now, see it as confirmation that you're waking up about yourself. See it as evidence that the work you're doing on yourself, the healing you're doing, the growing you're doing, is working. See it as a sign that you're on the right path, that you're becoming more aligned with your true self, that you're letting go of the false beliefs that have held you back. And if you're not seeing this evidence yet in your external world, don't worry. Don't lose faith. Don't give up. The lag time between internal change and external manifestation is different for everyone. Sometimes it happens quickly. Sometimes it takes longer, but it always happens eventually if you stay consistent with your new way of thinking and being. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be completely healed or completely awakened. You just have to be willing. Willing to see yourself differently, willing to question the old stories, willing to try a new approach, willing to be kind to yourself, willing to believe that maybe, just maybe, you're more wonderful than you've been giving yourself credit for. And here's something beautiful. When you wake up about yourself, you naturally start waking up about others too. You start seeing the light in them. You start recognizing their struggles and their strengths. You start having more compassion, more understanding, more love. Because when you're not so busy defending and protecting your false self, when you're not so consumed with your own insecurities and fears, you have space to really see other people. This is how healing spreads. This is how love multiplies. This is how the world changes. One person wakes up about themselves, then they help others wake up, and those people help others, and it ripples out in ways we can't even measure. Your awakening matters. Your healing matters. Your decision to see yourself truthfully and lovingly matters more than you know. Right now, someone is waking up about you, but the question is, are you waking up about you? Are you ready to let go of the old story? Are you ready to stop believing the lies? Are you ready to see yourself as you truly are, magnificent, worthy, deserving, capable, powerful, lovable, exactly as you are right now? You don't have to wait until you lose weight. You don't have to wait until you make more money. You don't have to wait until you find the right relationship or get the right job or achieve the right status. You can decide right now, in this moment, to wake up about yourself. You can choose right now to see yourself through the eyes of truth instead of the eyes of fear. And when you do that, something miraculous happens. The people around you start to reflect that new understanding back to you. They start treating you differently because you're treating yourself differently. They start respecting you more because you respect yourself more. They start loving you more openly because you're loving yourself more openly. Not because they've changed, but because you have. Not because they suddenly became better people, but because you're no longer settling for less than you deserve. This is personal power. Not the kind that tries to control others or manipulate situations. Not the kind that needs to dominate or prove anything, but the kind that comes from knowing who you are and standing firmly in that truth. The kind that doesn't need validation because it's already validated from within. The kind that doesn't fear rejection because it knows its worth is inherent, not conditional. Someone is waking up about you right now, and it's changing the trajectory of your life. It's opening doors you didn't even know were there. It's creating opportunities you couldn't have planned for. It's bringing you connections you couldn't have forced. Because when someone sees you truly, when they recognize your value, when they appreciate your authentic self, they want to support you, help you, collaborate with you, love you, be near you. But remember, their awakening about you is really a mirror of your own awakening about yourself. They can only see in you what you're ready to be seen. They can only appreciate in you what you're willing to own. They can only love in you what you're no longer hiding. So the real work, the important work, is your internal work. It's your decision to see yourself clearly. It's your choice to love yourself fully. It's your commitment to being authentically yourself. And when you make that commitment, when you decide that you're done hiding, done pretending, done diminishing yourself, done apologizing for existing, everything changes. Not overnight, maybe. Not all at once, perhaps. But steadily, surely, inevitably. Because you've aligned yourself with truth, and truth always prevails. You've aligned yourself with love, and love always wins. You've aligned yourself with your authentic self, and authenticity always attracts what's meant for you. So many people are waiting for the right time, waiting for the right circumstances, waiting until they feel ready, waiting until they're sure. But here's what I've learned. You'll never feel completely ready. You'll never be completely sure. You'll never have all the answers. You have to start before you're ready. You have to take the leap before you can see the net. You have to believe in yourself before you have all the evidence. Someone waking up about you right now is giving you that evidence. It's showing you that you are seen, you are valued, you are appreciated, but don't wait for that external validation to decide you're worthy. Decide it now. Decide it yourself. Give yourself the validation you've been waiting for. Give yourself the approval you've been seeking. Give yourself the love you've been wanting. Because here's the truth. You can't receive from others what you're not willing to give yourself. If you don't value yourself, other people's validation will never feel like enough. If you don't love yourself, other people's love will never fill the void. If you don't believe in yourself, other people's belief will never convince you. The only lasting source of worthiness is the one that comes from within. This doesn't mean you don't need people. We're social beings. We're meant to connect, to love, to support each other. But it means you don't need them to complete you. You're already complete. They're not filling a void. They're celebrating what's already there. They're not making you worthy. They're recognizing the worthiness that already exists. When you understand this, relationships become so much richer. Love becomes so much freer. Connection becomes so much more authentic. Because you're not coming from a place of need. You're coming from a place of wholeness. You're not trying to get something. You're trying to share something. You're not looking to be saved. You're looking to co-create. Someone waking up about you right now is seeing this shift in you. They're noticing that you're different. You're more centered. You're more confident. You're more peaceful. You're more yourself. And it's attractive. Not in a superficial way, but in a real, substantial, meaningful way. Because authenticity is magnetic. Self-love is attractive. Inner peace is powerful. And the more you cultivate these qualities within yourself, the more you'll attract people who appreciate them. You'll stop attracting people who need you to be small so they can feel big. You'll stop attracting people who need you to be broken so they can feel like the fixer. You'll stop attracting people who need you to doubt yourself so they can control you. Instead, you'll attract people who celebrate your growth, support your healing, and encourage your authenticity. This is what happens when you wake up about yourself. Your whole world rearranges itself to match your new understanding. People who can't resonate with the new you will naturally fall away. Not because you're rejecting them, but because there's no longer a vibrational match. And new people will come in, people who match where you are now, people who can meet you at this new level of awareness and authenticity. Don't mourn the relationships that end when you change. Bless them and release them. They served a purpose. They taught you something. They were part of your path. But now you're on a different part of the path, and you need different companions. Trust that the right people will show up at the right time. They always do when you're being true to yourself. Someone waking up about you right now might be one of those new people. Or it might be someone who's been in your life all along but is finally ready to see you clearly. Either way, it's happening because you're ready for it. It's happening because you've done the work. It's happening because you've raised your frequency. It's happening because you've decided you're worth it, and you are worth it. You're worth the effort it takes to heal. You're worth the courage it takes to change. You're worth the discomfort of growth. You're worth the risk of being authentic. You're worth the vulnerability of being seen. You're worth the patience of waiting for what's right instead of settling for what's available. You're worth all of it, and more. When you really get this, when you really understand your worth at the cellular level, you stop tolerating things that diminish you. You stop accepting treatment that disrespects you. You stop staying in situations that drain you, not from a place of arrogance or superiority, but from a place of self-honoring. You're simply recognizing that your time, your energy, your life is precious, and you get to choose how to spend it. This isn't selfish. This is self-care. This is wisdom. This is spiritual maturity, because when you honor yourself, you teach others how to honor you. When you respect yourself, you set the standard for how you'll be treated. When you love yourself, you create the foundation for all other love in your life. Someone waking up about you right now is learning this lesson through you. They're seeing how you've changed, how you've grown, how you've started honoring yourself, and it's teaching them something. Maybe it's showing them what's possible. Maybe it's inspiring them to do their own work. Maybe it's holding up a mirror to where they've been taking you for granted. Whatever the lesson is, your growth is serving them, even if they don't say it. This is the ripple effect of awakening. When you change, everything around you has to change to accommodate the new you. Some people will rise to meet you. Some won't. Some will celebrate your growth. Some will feel threatened by it. Some will come closer. Some will move away. All of that is okay. All of that is part of the process. Your job isn't to control how others respond to your growth. Your job is to keep growing. And right now, in this moment, as someone is waking up about you, you have a choice. You can dismiss it. You can deflect it. You can tell yourself they're wrong or they don't really see you. Or you can receive it. You can let it in. You can allow yourself to be seen, to be appreciated, to be valued. You can let it be evidence that you're on the right path, that your work is paying off, that you're becoming who you were always meant to be. Receiving is just as important as giving. In fact, your ability to receive determines how much good can flow into your life. If you deflect compliments, if you dismiss appreciation, if you reject love, you're literally pushing away the very things you say you want. You have to be willing to receive. You have to be willing to let people see you. You have to be willing to believe that maybe, just maybe, they're right about you. This takes practice, especially if you're used to being invisible, to playing small, to deflecting attention. But it gets easier. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. You start to realize that letting people appreciate you isn't arrogant. It's generous. You're allowing them the joy of giving. You're allowing them to see beauty. You're allowing them to express love. You're giving them a gift by receiving their gift. Someone is waking up about you right now, and they want to tell you, they want to show you. They want you to know how much you matter, how much you've impacted them, how much they value you. Will you let them? Will you receive it? Will you let it nourish you? Or will you brush it off, minimize it, tell yourself they don't mean it? Your response to their awakening matters, not because it affects your worth, but because it affects your experience of life. If you can't receive love, appreciation, and recognition when it comes, you'll always feel starved no matter how much people offer. But if you can open yourself to receive, if you can let it in, if you can say thank you and actually feel it, you'll feel nourished, you'll feel seen, you'll feel connected. And that feeling, that experience of being truly seen and valued, will reinforce your new understanding of yourself. It will strengthen your self-love. It will confirm your worthiness. Not because you need their validation, but because it aligns with what you now know to be true about yourself. It's an echo of your own inner knowing reflected back to you through another person. This is the dance of relationships. We're all mirrors for each other. We're all reflecting back various aspects of each other. When someone wakes up about you, they're showing you something about yourself that you're ready to own. They're highlighting a quality, a strength, a gift that you've been developing. They're confirming what your soul already knows, but your mind might still doubt. So pay attention to what people are noticing about you. Pay attention to what they're appreciating, complimenting, valuing. These aren't random. They're clues. They're showing you what's emerging in you, what's becoming more visible, what you're ready to fully step into. Don't dismiss them. Don't minimize them. Learn from them. Let them guide you toward fuller expression of your authentic self. Right now, someone is waking up about you, and this is just the beginning. As you continue to wake up about yourself, as you continue to grow and heal and become more authentically you, more people will wake up too. More people will see you. More people will appreciate you. More people will value you. Not because you're trying to impress them or win them over, but because you're simply being yourself, and that's magnetic, that's powerful, that's irresistible. Your authentic self is your greatest gift to the world. Not some improved version of yourself, not some future version when you finally got it all together, but the you that exists right now, with all your quirks and flaws and struggles and strengths, the real you, the unfiltered you, the you that shows up even when you're not perfect, even when you're uncertain, even when you're still figuring it out. That's the you someone is waking up about right now. That's the you they're seeing and valuing and appreciating, not some fake version, not some carefully curated version, the real you. And the more you can show that version, the more you can be that version, the more you can love that version, the more others will wake up about you too. This is your invitation. This is your moment. This is your opportunity to finally, completely, wholeheartedly wake up about yourself, to see yourself as you truly are, to love yourself as you deserve to be loved, to honor yourself as the precious, unique, irreplaceable being that you are. Someone else is already doing it. Someone else is already seeing it. Now it's your turn. Wake up about yourself. The world is waiting for the real you.
Hi, my name is Wayne Dyer.
And so most of the stuff that we want to manifest and attract into our lives comes from a position, a belief system internally that says where I am is not complete, or I'm lacking, or I don't have enough. And every time you start thinking in terms of I don't have enough or something is lacking, if you understand the, Abraham's work on the law of attraction, is that this is a universe that matches you up vibrationally with what you were thinking. So if you're thinking about what's missing in your life, if you're really thinking about that and trying to manifest from the perspective of what's missing, you will be aligned vibrationally internally with a thinking system that says I don't have enough, and the universe will offer you experiences that will match up to what it is that you're thinking. If, on the other hand, your internal system says that everything that I have is fine, and whatever shows up in my life is going to, and I'm going to put my attention on being at peace and being, and I'm going to do a whole seminar on this in Maui in October, in just a couple of months now. This is already August, my goodness, on manifesting. I wrote a book about it years ago called Manifest Your Destiny. And basically, it gets down to just being in a state of contentment, being in a state of peace within yourself, and imagining whatever it is that you would like to see show up in your life, but almost wanting it more for other people than you want for yourself, and putting your attention on how may I serve rather than what's in it for me, and then just watching and just knowing that if you think abundance, if you understand that you are abundant, if you think that you are healthy, if you think that you are wealthy, and you act from that perspective and you imagine yourself to be in a state like that, you'll find that the universe or God or the Tao or Source matches up with that kind of thinking. I say it in the movie of The Shift, that you do not get what you want in life. You get what you are. You get what you think. So think in those kinds of ways and just allow it to show up in your life. And it seems to me that it always works for me. The greatest gift that you've been given is your imagination, the gift of your imagination.
And I do a lot of that.
And everything that exists in the physical world, everything that exists in the physical world was once a thought. It was once just imagined. And so if you can get yourself to a place where in your imagination you can see that, and it's not done because your ego says I want to be famous or anything like that, it's just this is how I want to serve, you'll find yourself given opportunities to do it. Maybe you'll do a little radio show in Atlanta or even at your church or something like that, and you begin to just interview people and put those things out there, and before you know it, the kinds of things that's exactly, I'm sitting here at the age of 70, and a lot of people want to know how I did it and all of that, and I did it exactly the way I'm telling you. I could imagine myself doing it. I would start out I was teaching at a university in New York, at St. John's University, and I just decided I wanted to offer a lecture series on Monday nights in Port Washington at the Educational Assistance Center. I put a little ad in the newspaper out there because they gave me some free space, and we signed up people. It was for $10. It would be for $10 for 4 lectures on 4 different Mondays. So it was $250 a lecture, and at the end of the 4 lectures, we only had like maybe 13 or 14 people show up, At the end of the 4 weeks, I asked how many people would like to continue, and they had friends that they would want to have come as well. We had about 50 people for the second 4 weeks, and then they started telling other people about it, and before you knew it, I was at Schreiber High School, and we would have 11 or 1,200 people every Monday night coming to public lectures, each of them paying like $5 for a lecture and so on. And that's how it started for me. I just started taking off and giving the lectures and then writing books about it. And, and it all came from just in my imagination, just wanting to be able to talk to people and entertain them and offer them advice that on things that just seem to make sense to me. Like I always say, this is one of my favorite hours of the week. It's just an opportunity to sit and talk to people from any place, that they might want to talk about. And it's sort of unstructured, and that's kind of the way I like it. It's the way I write my books. It's the way I speak, just from my heart. And to stay in a state of gratitude about where you are, and to understand that the metaphor I've often used is if you had a wand in your left hand, and this wand in your left hand, you could get anything that you wanted. You could manifest anything. You could have a new car. You could have new jewelry. You could have a new home. You could have whatever it is you wanted. Or in lieu of that, in your right hand, you had a wand that the only thing that you could manifest and guarantee is that you have inner peace for the rest of your life. No matter what came down the road at you, no matter what struggles, no matter what was happening, that internally you would be at peace. Which one of those would you choose? And almost everybody, when they think about it, they would take the one in the right hand, just being in a state of peace. I've used this metaphor so many times in my life as I ask an audience, when you have an orange and you squeeze an orange, what comes out? And the answer, of course, is orange juice. And the reason that orange juice comes out when you squeeze an orange is because it's an orange. That's what's inside of an orange. So, and the same thing is true of you. You can't squeeze an orange and get grapefruit juice. There's just no possibility. You can't squeeze an orange and get plum juice. You just can't do it. And when someone squeezes you and which is what your parents do, and put pressure on you and make you feel whatever it is that you feel, and out of you comes anger and resentment and bitterness and fear and all of the stuff that comes out because you've been squeezed. It's not because of who did the squeezing. Orange juice doesn't come out of an orange because of who squeezes it or how they squeeze it. It comes out because that's what's inside. So you have the ability to change what's inside. And what's inside of you is stuff that you have been carrying around in there about your parents that is a part of your subconscious training. And you can shift your subconscious training at any moment in your life. I've been doing this with certain things in my life right now for the last year or so, changing some habits that I've had for a lifetime, that I have behaved in certain, I'm not even going to say what they are because some of them are just so silly. They're just personal little things. And I've never been able to change them. And I've just made a conscious decision. I remember when I decided to change biting my fingernails when I was back in college. And everyone said how hard that is. I remember what it was when I quit smoking and when I quit alcohol and so on. And you have the same kinds of habits. And you have allowed the parents squeezing you to allow something other than love to come out of you. And this is going to be a great test for you. So, and if you find yourself, when you're in their presence and they say something, you find yourself getting really pissed off and, they've just said this and it just really upsets you, you instantly just make that conversion within your mind and say, nope, I'm going to only send love. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. That's a great suggestion. I never thought of that before, regardless, because I am not going to allow myself to be in this place with them, and I'm only going to allow to come out of me what's inside. And what's inside is what you choose to put there as a result of your deciding that my subconscious mind is no longer going to be operating out of those habits that don't work for me. Those habits got you into the need to have recovery in the first place.
Right.
That's why you went to alcohol. That's why you went to drugs, whatever it was that you went to, because you were looking for something external to yourself in order to allow yourself to feel good. But it never works, does it? It just doesn't work. So what you want to do is go to something within you that will keep you on the road not only of your recovery, but your recovery isn't for you. Your recovery is so that you can become this instrument of love and help other people. Okay, you got a line in the sand, all right? Yeah. And on one side of the line is you, yeah. And on the other side of the line is your mother and father and other relatives who are, let's just say, not aligned the same way that you are, okay? Right. Let's just say that. So I want you to stay on your side of the line, okay?
Right.
But I want you to understand that you can send anything over to anybody else on the other side of that line anytime without you having to go over there or without having you have them come to you. And all you have to do, you don't have to cross the line in the sense of going over there and having them in your face. You never have to have that. You know, you don't have to choose to have somebody there who is abusive towards you, or who's aligned in a different way, or who isn't honest, or, you know, who's, whatever they are. Because there's lots and lots of people like that. You know, I've got deals like that going on in my own family, in my own family, with my own children. On the other hand, I want to send her as much love as I possibly can. And I do that on a regular, and you can do that. You can do that not with just sending spiritual love. You can do it physically as well. You can send flowers, and you can send books, and you can, without opening the floodgate and allowing that energy to come back, and you can do just as much good, not only for them, but for yourself, by being this instrument of love. I've always used that quote of Jesus so often. I've heard it so many times said of him, that when he would go into a village, just his presence in the village and nothing more would elevate the consciousness of everyone in the village. And I can never forget Mother Teresa and her, when she walked into a room and I saw the entire energy of the room change. And I saw myself do it yesterday or Saturday in Las Vegas, when I walked into a room and was able to, by sending out just love to everyone in the room, I was able to see and feel the entire energy of that room change as I was walking in there. You can do that.
And if you can go to that infinite place and just, put love out there, from the very worst offenders to just people who are speeding, to, people who are, jaywalking, to people who are assaulting others, everything out there, it's a cry for love. It's a cry to be back closer to God. And if you can do that and remind yourself of that, and just extend a little kindness where brutality or anger or hatred or just being fed up just seems to take over, if you can do that, you're doing God's work.
There's that great Chinese proverb that says, if you're going to pursue revenge, you'd better dig 2 graves, because the rage and the revenge and the anger that you carry around with you is going to kill you. It'll take away your health. It'll take away your happiness. It'll destroy your relationships. It'll keep you from being in a state of love. It'll make you feel unworthy of any love that shows up towards you. It'll make you less attractive physically. It'll make you physically sick. There's no payoff that's good for it. And this man who behaved in these ways has taught you that. This isn't to say that this person shouldn't be held accountable for his conduct at all. What we're talking about here is just what goes on within you. You are, and everyone listening out there, you are all beings of love. You're beings of light. You have to come back to the remembrance of the light and the love that you came from. And that's what you're going to return to. Meantime, while you're here, we stay away from that, and then we wonder why our life doesn't work. And our life works so much better when we just go within and we get calm and we just say, you know what? Everybody out there is doing what they know how to do, given the conditions of their life. They're just doing the best they can right now in the circumstances that they're in. And who am I to tell anybody that out there that they ought to be doing it the way I'm doing it? Because basically behind that thinking is this notion, which is, if only you were more like me, then I wouldn't have to be so unhappy. But the world isn't like you. The world is the way it is, and accepting the world the way it is and the people in it the way they are. And when we do that, we have less of that. It's trying to understand like bigger problems like war, we talk about war as if it's a way of resolving problems, and all it does is just intensify and create more of them. All of the people coming back from the wars right now are just, their lives are just such a mess. We take them over there, we put guns in their hands, and we tell them to go kill people and blow people up, and then they come back, and I've got a brother that's just living with such horrors over the things that he experienced when he was in Vietnam. It's just these unnatural ways of being. Our original nature is gentleness and kindness and service towards others. That's what we came from. And we've got to stay in that place, and anything that we can do to stay in that place and not allow that resentment. I remember when I was doing some work on my own recovery from some addictions, and I remember seeing a sign in the back of the room that said, and I've never forgotten this. In fact, I made it a chapter in my book, 10 Secrets for Success and Inner Peace. It said, there are no justified resentments. There are no, that's a theme in AA. There are no justified resentments. All of the resentments that you carry around within you, we try to justify them, but all they do is take us away from God. I'm reading a book right now called Ascended Master Training. It's from Saint Germain, and it's this great teachings because I've always felt that I've been sort of an ascended master in training since I was a young boy, and protected from different things. And because of, the books that I've written, most of them have just come out of the consciousness that you're just speaking about. When I let go and let God, which is what recovery is really all about, isn't it? It's about just letting go. And it's a theme. You hear it over again. Just let the universal Tao, this thing that cannot be named, let this source that provides all of life, just let it flow through you. Let it beat your heart. It's going to anyway. Let it grow your fingernails, and let it digest your food. And let it also take care of everything. It's just like let go. And as you do that, you find that, so much of the stress, the relationships that you're in that cause stress, they just seem to get to a place where it's just not worth it. And all of a sudden, God starts sending you different people into your life. People that are going to make you feel better, rather than people who are going to create more anxiety and stress. You're going to feel loved. You're going to see it everywhere. To try to talk to people who are in situations that they find themselves in that are, just not pleasant or difficult, or the financial problems or whatever. It's almost impossible to get, ordinary thinking people to stop and say, you know what, I created all of these circumstances in my life. Whatever my financial situation, whatever the nature of my relationships are, these are all things that I've created. Instead of saying that the best is yet to come, I would say, I would shift that to the best is now. It's right here. It's not what's going to happen to you. It's not coming. It's here. You are it. It is you.
Doctor.
I get that when I go on stage. I get that when I sit down to write. I get it when I start to do this radio show, and never knowing what the next call is going to be and where it's going to be from and whatever. And just knowing that my words and what comes out of me is out there helping people to feel better, to heal their lives. It's like all of this is a part of trusting in your own divinity. I said it very early in my career. When you trust in yourself, you're trusting in the wisdom that created you. You're really trusting in something that allowed you to come into this world. There's a love that supersedes and transcends all of the sadness, all of the bereavement, all of the focus on what's wrong with the world. And if everybody could take the excitement, the inner joy, the bliss that you are attempting to describe here and just enfold it into their lives and put their arms around it, then all of these things that we call problems would disappear, because basically at our core, we are all just pieces of God. That which looks out from behind your eyeballs, that which is speaking these words that you are speaking and that I am speaking, that's our highest self. Joel Goldsmith, in his book of Parentheses in Eternity, once said that in the presence of the God realized, that the laws of the material world do not apply. So that if we're able to reach this place of God realization, where we're in alignment with the source of our being, where I just call it thinking like God thinks, which is what Einstein's famous quote was. I don't care about the details. I just want to learn to think like God thinks. Like whatever the source of being, even if you're an atheist, there is a source of, there is an invisibleness from which all visible things originate. I mean, the greatest scientists on the planet will tell us that, that in the Tao it says very clearly that, that all being originates in non-being. So whatever that non-beingness is, the closer you get to how you think it acts and feels. And it's very interesting, because when I wrote a book a few years back called The Power of Intention, it was that idea, that principal idea, that there is a way for us that intention isn't something that we do through the ego. Intention is a field of energy from which all things are intended. And if you can stay aligned with what that is like, then that's when the miracles take place. And I've done endless programs and lectures and so on, and contemplated this stuff in front of very large audiences and on tapes and so on. Right. And basically, what I feel is that as you elevate your consciousness, as you begin to remove the influences and the power and the draw of the ego, and begin to substitute your inner mantra shifts to how may I serve and what may I do for you, your false self less and more about just serving, then that's when the miracles, that's when healings take place. That's when abundance begins to show up. That's when, that's what they said even of Jesus. I mean, when he was God on earth. I mean, like Buddha, And in the presence of that kind of realization, even death itself couldn't survive. Even illness can't survive. That,
wow.
like the story of Lazarus, in the Bible, because of that consciousness. That
Right.
when you're in the presence of that consciousness, death doesn't exist because there is no death. I've said so many times, and I just talked to a girl whose mother died last week, and she was just so upset about it. And I was saying, you haven't grasped the idea that she can't really die. She was in a little baby body. She was in a toddler's body. She was in a teenage body. She was in a 20 and a 30 and a 40-year-old body. She's been in hundreds, thousands, a new body every single day. And the body keeps changing and going through
Right.
the process of decay and death, which we all go through: growth, decay, death. But who she is, her isness, whatever it is that keeps being in these other bodies, is no different now than it was when she was 12 and when she was 18 and so on. And that part can't die. And when you get that, when you really begin to realize that, that's when these kinds of miracles that I've spoken about so often in my life, when, the idea that when you put we call it a coincidence, but, when we have a thought and that thought is so aligned with spirit and it's not focused on what's in it for me, that the manifestation of that thought, the physical manifestation of that thought, begins to take place. Thomas
Right.
Crowder talked about this in the early part of the 1900s. He said that when you begin to contemplate in the same way that God contemplates, then you gain the same powers that God has: the ability to create, the ability to manifest, the ability to heal, the ability to have things happen for you. That's what happens as you start contemplating your life, not from the perspective of how the ego does, like how much more can I get, and I'm competing with others and so on, but you begin to contemplate in terms of how may I serve, how may I offer, how may I, be able to reach out. And as you do that, and I know I get so excited when I think about this topic, that even the least among you, as Jesus was saying, that I'm no different than you. He says somewhere in the New Testament, is it not written, like in the Old Testament, that I have said that it is said that you are gods, that we are all gods, that we are all pieces of God, we are all fragments of God. And as we think like that, the least among us, and I think what is referred to as the least, and remember, we're talking about interpretations here. Who knows what the
Right.
least means? So that's just some translators, use of a phrase that was, that was uttered thousands and thousands of years ago. I would assume that to be what you said, that the feeble among us, those that will inherit the earth, becoming the observer to your life. It's like my teacher in India said, that don't take your life so personally. Beginning to become the observer to your life, and as you become the observer, you begin to notice that these miracles really do occur. That the things that St. Francis was able to do. That birds would come and just land on his shoulder. I've had butterflies come and just land and talk to me.
All things are possible. If you've been addicted to something for 20 years, if you've been overweight your whole life, if you've been poor your whole life, you've been saying, I am poor, I am fat, I am unworthy. You are using the name of God in vain. You must begin to say, I am healthy, I am happy, I am content, I am well-being, I am addiction-free, and be able to say it. Forget about what your senses tell you, you forget everything else. William Blake, the great poet, said, to see the world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower, to hold eternity in the palm of your hand and infinity in an hour, we are all led to believe a lie when we see with, not through the eye, which was born in a night to perish in a night, while the soul slept in beams of light. The soul. When you align your soul with what wants to expand and not be held back, and push away all forces that will try to encumber you, will try to restrict you. Your soul is miserable when you're trying to live out somebody else's dharma, an idea of what you should be. You must be able to do it from within, and when you do, the most amazing things begin to happen. And there's an observation from the New Testament that says, in the presence of him whom he believed God, who gives life to the dead, and calls, and these are the most important words, I think, in Romans, the book of Romans 4:17, and calls these things which do not exist as though they did. This is the secret. This is what I've been reading about all day about time. You've got to be able to say not only that I am perfect health, I am well, I am prosperous, I am employed, I am whatever it is that if you would like to place into your imagination, you have to ignore everything that comes your way that conflicts with that, including your own senses. Most importantly, what your eyes and your ears and the reports tell you. You must be able to hold firm this idea and call things as God, and you are God. Call things which do not exist as though they did. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is so significant because your feelings are beyond your intellect. Your feeling is what you experience in your body. And when you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are taking over your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is the mind that does 96 to 97% of everything that you do. How do you think you got here today? You got in your cars, or you got on a plane and you drove here, and you got, did you think about what you were doing when you were driving? Did you think, I got to put my foot on the brake, I got to slow it down? You drive all over. You can drive all the way across the country and never have one conscious thought about it. Your conscious mind is used to program your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is amenable to suggestions. Your subconscious mind doesn't care whether you're right or wrong, whether it's good or bad. It only accepts everything that you place into it. Hey, I'm 71 years old. At the age of 18, I was in the Navy. They sent me to Bainbridge, Maryland, to become a radioman cryptographer. And for 3 weeks, my conscious mind was programmed for an hour a day to learn Morse code. And I sat in front of a typewriter and I did Morse code an hour a day. That was 51 years ago. I have never used Morse code since. My subconscious mind, after all these years that it was programmed, it's still doing the did-its, the dot-its, the dot-its. I can't get it out of there. Do you know how many did-its, dot-its, dot-its that you have? Here they are. I can't do this. I'm not very attractive. I'm not intelligent. I'm poor. I'm not allowed to have this. I'm not worthy of this. Did-it, dot-it. I can't make this thing happen. Did-it. I can't create miracles. Did-it. I can't get over a hill. Your subconscious mind has been programmed. It doesn't take very much to get it in there. Getting it out of there is like one of the most crucial things that you can do. You have to begin to pay attention to everything that comes at you that's involved with what's in your subconscious mind. I mean, Jill Clayburgh, the great actress, just passed away. She passed away from the same kind of leukemia that I have. I had about 11 different people send me a picture of her and tell me, she was younger than you, and is that what I want to hear? Is that what I want to program my subconscious mind to begin to believe? I'm watching TV, and the newscaster, Brian Williams, is on there. He said, we're going away. We'll be right back. And when we come back, we're going to give the 10 early warning signs for Alzheimer's disease. Boy, that's what I want to write down. I want to make sure I carry those with. Do you ever walk into a room and forget what you walked in there for? I've been doing that since I was 12. Do I want to program myself? Your subconscious mind is always getting things thrown at it to take out of your consciousness the things that you have placed in there that you want to manifest and attract for yourself in your life. When you use the words I am, you are using the name of God. When you act and live from that place and call things that do not exist as if they did, and live from that and base how you feel and how your life is going on how you feel and your connection to God rather than on what somebody else tells you, you have had programmed into you about what can and can't happen. And the fact is, with God, all things are possible.
To me, it's almost like a game. When I run into negative people, if it's a waiter, if it's a flight attendant, if it's, just anybody, and if I hear negativity, sometimes even in grocery stores, I will walk up to people. I'll see a woman really angry at her child and screaming, and I'll just walk up and stand close and see if just by standing there, if I can radiate out a different kind of energy. And very often, I can see the whole relationship changing. With waiters and with flight attendants and people that I'm dealing with, or even friends and so on, for me, it's always an opportunity to see if I can, by the end of our conversation or whatever interaction that we have, if I can convert them. Because, in the prayer of St. Francis, which I always said, I wrote a book based on that prayer called A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, and we have the CDs on that at Hay House. But basically, I always thought of that as a 11th century technology more than anything else. That he said, where there is, make me an instrument of thy peace, where there is doubt, faith, where there is despair, hope, where there is darkness, life, where there is sadness, joy. In other words, if you can bring joy to sadness, if you can bring love to hatred, if you can bring pardon to injury, what you're really doing is bringing a different energy to it. It's like when you walk into a room and you turn on the light, the darkness, disappears because all it takes is just a little bit of light to make darkness go away. You don't have to go in and look for some light and try to find it and then talk to the darkness and say, okay, darkness, you can't exist here and let me talk to you. Darkness dissolves the moment that you bring light to it. And so does hatred. It dissolves when you bring light to it. It's an energy kind of shift. And this is the way I look at all of the negativity that comes into my life, whoever it may be. And I see it around me on a regular basis. I mean, I was talking to my daughter, Serena, last night, who made me a wonderful Father's Day dinner, which I tweeted about or whatever on Twitter. But she was talking about how somebody else was so judgmental, and she just hated the idea. It was an ex-boyfriend she was talking about, and he judged this and he judged that. And I just stopped her and I said, what are you doing right now, about him? In other words, it's like, let's bring a different kind of consciousness to, this old boyfriend rather than, and as she began to talk about it and think about it, she said, it's exactly right. It's exactly what I was doing, the very same thing I'm criticizing him for. She didn't get angry. It wasn't a long interchange and exchange or whatever. It's just bringing a different consciousness. Very often, you don't even have to say anything. You just have to bring light. I've always used the quote I read someplace about Jesus. They said that when he would enter a village, just his presence in the village and nothing more would raise the consciousness of the entire village. And when people have very, very high energy and they bring that energy to spiritual energy, the highest and fastest energy in the universe, when you bring the presence of that to any kind of negativity that is around you, you elevate it. And the problem that most people have with negative people is that they blame the negative people for bringing them down. But that's inconsistent that's counterintuitive to what the prayer of St. Francis teaches. That the reason that negative people bring you down isn't because of their negativity, it's because you join them and become equally negative as well. That is, you hate someone for hating you. You get angry at someone for being angry at you. You get depressed because someone around you is depressing. And instead of maintaining and hanging on to your high energy, which will help that low energy to dissolve and dissipate, like when you bring light to darkness, instead you take on the darkness and you become some of the darkness yourself, and then you just expand the darkness or the negativity. And that's all you have to do to keep in mind over and over and over again, that it isn't them, it isn't their negativity that has any impact on me at all. I think of it as a wonderful opportunity to practice radiating out a higher spiritual energy and seeing other people around me be converted.
Yeah, I've heard you say in the past that you have liked to do that at airports.
I was sitting next to a woman on the airplane coming over here from Maui just on my way back here from my week-long tour of the country doing PBS and QVC and everything. Very nice lady. She was 50 years old. She was retiring from a big company and so on. And she recognized me and she was asking me who I liked, in the way of celebrities. And I was telling her about some of the people that were really very, like I was telling her to Dinah Shore, particularly someone who she used to have a show that I did for 87 weeks back in the 80s, and how wonderful and kind and so on that she was. And then she said to me, who don't you like? And who are the celebrities out there that are really, bastards or whatever? And my instant response was, I don't think like that. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I don't think about people that I don't like because I never encounter anyone I don't like. And it was like, I was thinking about, that's one of the ways to stop gossip. That's one of the ways to stop the negativity that is out there, is just to remind people, whoever it is out there that I have met, even if I had a difficulty with them, they were teachers for me. They weren't someone that I would walk away and then criticize and judge. Sometimes it's in the most mundane of things that we do that we find the greatest teachings come to us. I don't know if you've ever read any of Thich Nhat Hanh's mindfulness, that they would teach the Buddhists who were in the kitchen, to be able to take a plate and to just, in the washing of the plate and in the drying of the plate and the putting it down, working in the kitchen, that if you're in a state of mindfulness, that you can find your connection to God, you can find enlightenment, you can find complete peace, just total serenity in just this simple act of washing a dish and so on. So that it's the line from the Way of the Peaceful Warrior. I don't know if you've read Dan Millman's wonderful book. And there's a teacher in there, and I'll just very briefly sketch it. There's a man who's a teacher's name, and he's called Socrates. And Socrates is teaching Dan, who is actually was a gymnast, like an Olympic level gymnast, and was trying to teach him. He said, you have to go out and sit on a rock and don't come back and come off of that rock, no matter how long you stay there, until you have, until you can say something that's really significant, really relevant. It has to be really important. And he would go away and he'd come back and he'd say something. He'd say, no, that's not it. And he'd come back and he'd sit there for hours and hours, and he'd come back and he would say something to Socrates. Socrates says, no, that's not relevant. So no consequence what you're saying whatsoever. And then after like 24 hours of doing this, finally what came to him, and he came to Socrates and he said to him, I think I've found something that is truly significant. I've really reached truth. And he said, what is it? And he said, there are no ordinary moments. Mm. There are no ordinary moments. Like this whole concept of ordinary is like, and to recognize that extraordinariness is in every single thing that you do. That's my first thought about it. That self-actualizing people, according to Maslow, he said that they see the unfolding of God in everything and everyone that they encounter, whatever it may be. Walking in an airport and the person, standing in line ahead of you. That can be like one of the truly insightful moments in your life. In the book that I just finished writing, that I spent like 3 months writing every single day, I can see clearly now. I realized that some of the most significant turning points in my life occurred in what I would have called ordinary moments, before. And now I realize that there's absolutely no ordinary moments, that God is in everything. There's no place that God is not. And it's being able to be in that place. And then you get guided. And I simply was guided that if you really want to heal yourself, here's a little piece of advice for you. I studied the life of St. Francis. You heard me talking earlier in the show about St. Francis.
Oh, yeah.
St. Francis, when you read the stories of St. Francis and who he was, and you read the stories of Jesus, and you read the stories of Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa said that every day I see Jesus Christ in all of his distressing disguises. And I would think about that when you think about, the things, like even doing this radio show for me. I've been doing this show now for 7 or 8 years every Monday. And, you would think, well, this is just another one of those, quote, mundane chores that I have to do. I have to set aside this hour every Monday. And I got to go in and I have to sit in a room and I have to clear the house so that none of my kids are around and there's no noise. I have to make sure that, and there's so many other things that would be easier for me to do, just to be outside. My family's here now and so on. But it's probably the most inspiring hour I have every single week, just talking to people like yourself and, from all over the world. And sometimes I put the phone down at the end of the hour and I have tears going down my throat. And I thought, this is just like, it's just a little radio show. You're just doing call-in radio show. That means you've been doing this forever, this kind of thing. And yet some of the greatest insights that I've had and feelings of, it's like, because like self-actualization really boils down to, surrender. Mm. Truly, it's surrender, which means just like letting, what they say in the recovery movement, it's like just letting go and letting God direct your life. And it's about service. And it's about the other thing that Dan Millman wrote about in The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's about recognizing that there are no ordinary moments. There is no such thing. It's like when my kids say I'm bored and all of this, it's not possible. There's no such thing as boredom for a self-actualized person, There's no such thing as mundane. There's these things that you are doing. Begin to be so conscious of what it is that you're doing each and every day, whatever it is. If you're sitting at your desk and just writing, instead of just making that a routine, finding the spirit and finding a way to just surrender and to finding a way to be of service, Karen. It's about being of service, and it's available to you at all times. Within one block of where everybody who's listening to me right now, wherever you are in the world, within a block or two of where you are living, there's somebody who could use your help. There's somebody there who you could go read to, or that you could take a gift to, or you could just smile towards, or you could help clean up their house.
But the other thing that Einstein said is that the most important decision that you will ever make is the decision about whether you live in a friendly universe or in a hostile universe. He said, if you make the decision that you live in a hostile universe, then you will set yourself up, relatively speaking, to experience and see and have attracted towards you the fulfillment of that belief in where you live. you are going to be continuously inundated with a system, particularly a system of broadcasting and television and so on, which would like to convince you that we live in a very unfriendly and a very hostile universe. And you get messages like that directed at you all the time on a regular basis, right? You see it on the news. Depressing news, then you go to commercials sponsored by antidepressants. What a surprise. What a surprise. And if you decide that you live in a different kind of a universe and understand that when you change the way you look at things, when you change the way you look at this world, for example, there was just an election, and I was telling my daughters that if we decide to look at the world and the way things are going, and if half of the people in this country plus a few believe that it ought to be going in this direction, then you can change the way you look at that right now and make a decision about what the next 4 years and what the rest of your life is going to be like, independent of who sits in political offices and who is elected to various places in your life. And you don't want to allow yourself to be in a position where what people someplace else in another city and far away are making decisions about for you. And one of the things that I'll be speaking about a little bit later on will be how we can, within ourselves, go to a place where we communicate with our source, the place from which all things emanated, including ourselves, and change the way we look at things. And ultimately, by knowing that will change what it is that we're looking at, just by virtue of the fact of how we decide to process things. So if you were to ask me the question that was asked of Arthur Miller, are you working on another book? My response would be, I don't know, but I probably am. And what I probably am working on is the answer to this question of why wouldn't I know, is the difference between what people have labeled me, I've even seen it in your program here, who have said that I have often been called the father of motivation. Now, I'm already the father of enough. All right? I don't need anything called motivation to be the father of. And motivation is something that I have come to the conclusion after doing this out there in the public for almost 30 years now, that you really can't provide for another person. That motivation is essentially getting a hold of an idea and carrying that idea through to its logical conclusion, or to the conclusion that you have decided on ahead of time, and not allowing any obstacles to interfere with you attracting into your life what you want. A highly motivated person gets a hold of an idea and follows it through. The opposite of motivation is inspiration. And inspiration is the reverse, because it isn't you getting a hold of an idea and carrying it through. It's an idea gets a hold of you, and it takes you where you signed up to go but forgot, where you were intended to be, from a field of intention that Castaneda spoke about in the active side of infinity. That intention isn't something that we do. It is a field of energy from which all things are intended. And he said sorcerers, that is, people who live of the source, are not so much concerned with understanding this link between themselves and this field of intention from which they emanated, but they are more concerned with cleansing it of the numbing effects brought about by living their lives at ordinary levels of consciousness. The numbing effects brought about by living at ordinary levels of consciousness, which means, to me, that you are living, you have a corroded link between yourself and this field of energy from which you emanated. And the reason that it is so corroded and so distorted and so dirty and so incomplete in your life is because you have opted to live a life that has been programmed for you by something other than this internal knowing that you have about why you're here. Whether it is your culture, whether it is your parents, whether it is the pressures that you have felt because you've just gotten used to doing something a certain way, whatever it might be, that you find yourself living this life, but inside of you, there is this gnawing kind of internal pushing yourself in the direction of something else, but nobody understands it quite, because nobody can. Because inspiration means in spirit. And when you're in spirit, you have left behind all of the concerns and all of the things that other people would have us believe is what our life's purpose is.